Oh, hello. Welcome to another episode of G-Boot 786 on my channel. I am Gavin Richard. Welcome to Gavin Richard Presents. Whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome to another episode, guys. We got people coming in. Come on and join in if you can. I'm hoping to keep this one under an hour. I promise. I don't think I'll be too long with it. Welcome again to the channel, guys. Let's see. We're going to try and get some more people in. I'm trying not to make this thing too long today, but, I wanted to get through, say some things that were on my mind, some movies that I saw. Let's see who else. Just give me 1 second. Okay, got some more people coming in. All right. Well, I wanted to talk about some of the movies. I'll just get started. Fall, of course, is, I think, the second biggest, if I'm not mistaken, the second biggest event for Hollywood as far as premiering their movies. The summer is when they have the big blockbusters, and that all started in the 1970s when you had movies like, for instance, the Jaws, which was the first big Hollywood blockbuster at the time, at one point being the highest grossing movie of all time. And then, of course, you had movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Star Wars. All of that came out, in the 70s, and that's what really triggered this whole summer blockbuster movement that we've seen lately. So, long story short, yeah. And of course, when I was a kid, one of the movies, and I'll just start in no particular order, but I was always a big Eddie Murphy fan as far as his comedy and as far as, when he was on SNL. And when I was a kid, when we didn't have anything to do and we were by my grandmother's house, my cousins actually had a VHS tape of Coming to America, and we practically would watch it every day. We didn't get tired of it, just to see listen to Eddie Murphy, his comedy, and the imitations that he did, playing multiple characters. And that goes into the movie that we're reviewing now. Dolemite is my name. It's based on a true story, or inspired on a true story of one Rudy Ray Moore, who was the original Dolemite in 1975, 76, 75, I believe. He created, produced his own movie based off of a character called Dolemite that he used in his stand-up act. And the movie Dolemite is My Name, which came out on Netflix a few weeks ago, back in October 4th, 2019. Basically, Eddie Murphy is playing Rudy Ray Moore, who's a struggling assistant manager at a record store. He's also a struggling artist. He tries to get his music on the air. He wrote songs back in the 1940s and 50s, and Rudy actually served in the Army. He had a stand-up act back then as well. Movie overall chronicles his attempts to break into Hollywood and into the music business, and he's an MC also doing stand-up comedy at a club where he opens for his friend Ben Taylor and Taylor's musical group. Taylor's played by Craig Robinson, and there are a lot of people in this movie, from Craig Robinson to Lunell, who plays Rudy Ray Moore's aunt. You also have Keegan-Michael Key, who plays the screenwriter of the movie Dolemite. You have Titus Burgess, who's in the movie, plays a friend of Rudy Ray Moore. Mike Epps plays his friend Jimmy Lynch. And while he's working and promoting his album, he meets a single mother named Lady Reed, and she joins him on part of his tour. And what you can appreciate from Rudy Ray Moore and what he did was basically he hustled, through life and through his career to get his movie and to get his records sold throughout the community. And you're talking about selling his records outside of his car, just like Master P did at one point when Master P was starting No Limit. Master P was selling his rap albums out of a car, trying to get anyone to listen to him. It was a hustle that he tried to do. He pushed himself and he invested in everything. And Rudy Ray Moore threw everything, uh, on this movie to be made. The movie also stars how he got it made too. He also hands over, he signed over or got an advancement of his royalties to the Jewish uh, record owners of his label when he did all of his Dolemite albums. Now, this is a tricky part too. Uh, the character of Dolemite, just so everyone knows, wasn't made in 1975. He actually created that in 1969, 1970. So he had actually been doing these movies or doing that act for about 4 or 5 years before the actual Dolemite movie was made. And Rudy Ray Moore was well into his 40s at the time. He finally got on television and he finally got noticed. Brute and he wasn't on television. Let me state that correctly. Rudy was never on television until he was in his 60s. Fun fact, in 1994, when he appeared on the Arsenio Hall show, and he did his rap, and to great applause from the audience. And I think from what I've listened to his manager on Comedy Hype News, he said that was the highlight of his career. He said Eddie Murphy wouldn't touch Rudy Ray Moore or wouldn't piss on him for over, even though Rudy tried to work with him multiple times. I've heard Eddie has said he tried to work with Rudy Ray Moore on a movie. He refused to do so. And one of the things he talked about was how Rudy was not in one of Eddie Murphy's movies, which was Harlem Nights, where you saw all of the black comedians from Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Ronaldo Ray, Robin Harris. All of these men are gone, by the way. Of course, you had Della Reese and a few other people. Arsenio was in it, so it's a classic movie. But everyone, of course, can't be in the same movie. I don't know too much about that, but Flip Wilson wasn't in Harlem Nights. Bill Cosby wasn't in Harlem Nights. Of course, not that Bill Cosby would have done, a movie like that. But Dick Gregory wasn't in it. Paul Mooney wasn't in it. But I understood what the manager was trying to say. I didn't like the thing he said about Rudy Ray Moore being gay, because you're saying something about someone who's no longer with us, and it's almost like you thirst chasing. But I don't want to get off topic of focusing on the movie. So to get his movie made, he gets an advancement, Rudy Ray Moore, on his royalties, and he gets a director and also someone to star in it who was a hot black actor at that time, D'Urville Martin, played by Wesley Snipes, who was just outright funny in the movie. I really, a lot of people didn't think Wesley could do comedy, but if you remember back in 1989, Wesley did a movie called Major League with Charlie Sheen and Tom Bergeron, where he played Say Hey Willie Hayes, which was a very funny movie that he was in. So I always knew Wesley could do that, and this is actually a big comeback for him as well. With the BS that he had been dealing with, but more so for Eddie Murphy, I think that this was a great step in the right direction. I know he had been taking it easy for a little while, but I was very impressed with the movie screenwriting. So if I had to give it a rating, I would, out of 4 stars, I would give it 3.5. I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought the comedy was great, and also the premise of the story. Even if you don't like the Dolemite character or the pimp, people may think it was a stereotype that Rudy Ray Moore was doing. You can appreciate the work that he put in, where he invested in himself, and at a point where Hollywood would not invest in him. And there's this one scene, I want to talk about this one, where T.I. actually plays a Hollywood producer, and Dolemite, Eddie Murphy, Dolemite actually goes to see this producer to try to get his movie made, and they say they're not really interested in making those types of movies. And that's what you will find in Hollywood now, where there are certain types of movies where these higher ups who don't want to make those movies, will not invest in those people, and they will tell people who are trying to break into business that you'll never make it or we'll never hire you. And Rudy Ray Moore did not let them deter him from doing what he wanted. And, you know, another part that I liked in the movie was how even with negative criticism of the film, and he finally, does this guerrilla filmmaking where he gets the movie made, and it's at its premiere. People were waiting in lines just to see him and to see that movie for hours, and he actually stayed out in the line, entertaining the entire crowd. And the same producers that told him they would not distribute the film after he premiered it by himself, doing what's called four-wall distribution, where he only collected what was at the gate, at the ticket box office, and he promoted the hell out of it for that whole day, that whole week. He was in town in I think it was in Gary, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, in the movie. And Chris Rock plays the DJ in the movie who told him about his cousin's movie theater where he could premiere it. The movie was a huge success to the point where Dimension Pictures, as in Dimension, who makes Scream and Scary Movie and a few of those other movies, I think they've also done a lot of stuff with Quentin Tarantino, and Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein and Weinstein brothers were associated with that. I don't know if they were associated with it in the 70s. I don't think so. But nevertheless, once they saw the numbers that Dolemite made, they decided to bring Rudy Ray Moore in and help him distribute the film. And they collected money, but Rudy Ray Moore made sure he got his cut of it. So he built an empire, and you can respect that. He, did business, and he knew how to do business with these people. I don't know what he was making at the end of his life. I know he died in 2008, but he virtually didn't wait on Hollywood, and that's what we need to realize. When we want to make something, when we want our news, we want our stories told, then again, we gotta be the ones to put up a production company. How much does it cost? What can we do about getting screenwriters in to your film production so that we can employ Black screenwriters? You can employ Black PAs, as well as those that know editing and cinematography, so that we can make these type of stories that we want to see. So again, I give the film 3.5 stars. I thought it was a great film. And another interesting trivia, the D'Urville Martin character that Wesley Snipes played, D'Urville Martin, who died in 1984, was actually the original Lionel Jefferson in the original All in the Family story. It wasn't called All in the Family on TV at first. It was actually called Justice for All. And the character Archie Bunker who was played by Carroll O'Connor. His name was actually Archie Justice. And this was when Norman Lear was shopping All in the Family around. He could not find a network. At that time, I think this was being shown to ABC, and he finally went to CBS, where they agreed to take it on because CBS was changing its formatting at that time. And of course, once that happened, then the original Lionel Jefferson was out, and that's when Mike Evans took over. And as well as the original Meathead and Gloria, they weren't the same. So just a little trivia. So the next movie we're going to review is Terminator Dark Fate. It certainly is Dark Fate for the franchise. I'll just give it 2 stars. I wasn't truly impressed with it. There were some good, action sequences. I'll give it that. There were some interesting special effects. And I feel that the special effects now, especially when you look at Terminator, special effects in movies in general have taken over the actual storyline and structure of a movie. When you think of what Martin Scorsese said recently about how he didn't call Marvel Comics cinema, he classified it as a theme park. And he caught a lot of flack for it. And he wrote an actual editorial in the New York Times clarifying what he meant and giving accurate and his point of view of what cinema actually means. Growing up when he saw Alfred Hitchcock movies, how there was a storyline, there was a setup, there were, big action sequences, but those And yes, while there were special effects, the special effects didn't take the place of the actual movie. He makes movies, and the actors that came up and the directors that came up with Scorsese, like a Francis Ford Coppola, creator of The Godfather, along with, of course, Mario Puzo is the one who created The Godfather, but Coppola is the one that co-wrote the screenplays as well as directed the films. He even said the Marvel cinema movies were disgusting at one point. And I think what he's talking about, and I'm just inferring from that, is how most movies now rely on special effects and storylines. When Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 came out, and Terminator 1 has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, it was clearly ahead of its time. And the story and premises of Terminator is that a robot and a machine comes from the future to kill the mother of the savior of humanity from machines that have gone rogue, that are hunting down mankind. And what I didn't like about the movie, was that the complete storyline of the original Terminator had changed. And just a spoiler alert, there's spoilers in this. If you guys want to turn away or turn off, you can if you're going to go see the movie. But John Connor, in the opening scene, is murdered. And this is a little bit sometime after Terminator 2, Judgment Day, which to me was the last great Terminator film that they had. Very rarely does a sequel outdo an original, but Terminator 2, at that time, it was made in the early 90s, and I remember seeing the movie at 5 years old. The special effects were amazing at the time when you had the shape-shifting T-1000, how his hand could turn into a long sword and a knife and things of that nature. He could look like two different characters. The storyline was also great. And at that time, they actually had a budget that they worked with us outside of what they did in the original Terminator, which was made in the 80s, and the special effects, which were good, even good then for the 80s. But the storyline, the acting, the performances all supported that. And what they did with this storyline is that with John killed, even though they had destroyed Skynet, there's a new Skynet called Legion that takes over the machines. And the main savior of humanity now is not John Connor, but now it's a female named Daniela, if I'm not mistaken. And the original characters that were in the first Terminator, Linda Hamilton returns as Sarah Connor, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who needs to, I think, comes back as a T-800 Terminator who actually killed John Connor. Of course, they always have the same actor playing the same machine because they all look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but this time he actually grows autonomy and develops feelings and, becomes, after killing John Connor, he grows feelings and supposedly develops a conscience where he regrets killing John Connor. So he aids Linda Hamilton and Daniela, who is the savior, and a soldier from the future called Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis. Daniela is played by Natalia Reyes. And Mackenzie Davis, her main movie I remember her from was a movie called That Awkward Moment. She's also been in some other films as well. She's actually an enhanced human in this. She's been in Blade Runner 2049, The Martian, Breathe In. So she's from Canada, Canadian actress. Yeah, so she's been in a few hit movies. Excuse me, guys. But what they've done with what they've done with this movie and what they're doing in Hollywood is that they are changing the storylines now of our franchises, because you saw how this movie has changed. Terminator has changed the franchise where a female is now leading it. And of course, you heard about James Bond, how a female is going to take the 007 title from James Bond. So I think Hollywood is moving with when it's pushing diversity, and diversity can be a good thing, but it's sacrificing its characters. It's sacrificing the storyline. It's sacrificing your fan base by continuously changing the narrative of something that's been around for 30 plus years. When Terminator 2 ended, it ended on a high note. And it's very rare when another sequel can come along and not only outdo it, but to live up to standards. Look at The Godfather Part 3. The Godfather Part 3, by many standards, is the weakest of the trilogies, but even though that has its pluses in it, and I do like some elements of the storyline, but the casting of Sofia Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter as Michael Corleone's daughter, was considered a disaster. Some of the acting in it wasn't that great, but nevertheless, I get the Al Pacino and Diane Keaton and even Andy Garcia are the ones that really saved the movie as far as the acting is concerned and the storyline. But you have this thing in Hollywood now where they're willing to sacrifice and eliminate their fan base just so that they can have a woman in power. And you see that even with the Harriet movie, which I'm about to get into right now. But this movie actually flopped at the box office, Terminator 2, on a budget of estimated to be 185 million to 196. It's only grossed 123 million dollars. Now, it certainly that is a lot of money, but normally they're expecting big box office records, and they didn't get that. I think for this opening weekend, it only made $29 million, which was below standards for Hollywood. And the villain in this, too, is Terminator Rev 9, played by Gabriel Luna. So I just wasn't really impressed with it, like talking about it. I think that they should leave well enough alone when you deal with Terminator, because they've also changed the storylines in different movies that they've had. Because Sarah Connor in the last Terminator movie, Terminator Genesis, John Connor is the villain, which really was ridiculous. But I thought it was even a better movie than this one. Now, as far as Harriet is concerned, as a general rule, I don't like to comment on movies that I have not seen. I don't think I would be effective in my analysis if I did. But I did want to talk about it because there's been so much hoopla and hullabaloo that I've heard about how bad this movie is, about the stereotypes or that they promote in the movie, in particular of the white savior coming to save the black woman, how the black man ain't shit, and all these other things. Now, I haven't seen Harriet, so I don't know how effective I will be in giving my analysis on Harriet. And as a general rule, I don't like to do that because I think it's fair that I at least see the movie just to give it a chance. But based on the reviews that I've heard from reliable sources like Tariq Nasheed, like Nicole from Nicole's View, and a few others, Brother Ron heard from We All Be News, I think it's safe to say that I probably should just wait until Harriet comes on Netflix instead of actually going to pay my movie. I actually saw Dr. Boyce Watkins' review of it. He actually said he was going to walk out of the film. But what most people have been talking about and why they're upset with the movie, from what I've heard, is that a black male is the main villain in the film, and the white slave owner during one is the savior of the film or helps to save the hero character. Now, when you talk about black bounty hunters, and I know I've seen Django Unchained, which was a very great movie. Really, and yes, there were blacks who overseers on plantations. There were black slave owners. However, we have to take into account that during those times in the 1800s, African Americans were not even allowed, black Americans, well, they weren't even considered not only human, but it was against the law for blacks to wear or to possess any type of weapon, including firearms, guns, firearms, knives, clubs, and sticks. And even if they killed a white man, killed anyone in self-defense, let alone a white man, they were still subject to the death penalty for doing so. Although they were considered property, I don't see how you can even try them. But nevertheless, racism doesn't make sense here in a system of white supremacy. People do what they want. And apparently, a slave catcher calls a black bounty hunter calls Harriet Tubman. I saw the bootleg clip of it, a bitch. And then when he's about to kill her, as she's climbing over a rock, she's saved by a white slave owner who shoots this villain. Now, in truthfulness, if you know anything about Harriet Tubman and Harriet's story, is that Miss Tubman, first and foremost, was a hero. She was a ride or die chick. She was married to a black man, and her slave owner, uh, actually beat the living hell out of her to the point where he threw a hot iron at Harriet Tubman that struck her in her head, that she had seizures for the rest of her life. So, what I find with these movies, and it's directed by a black woman named Casey Lemmings. Casey Lemmings actually directed Talk to Me. She's also, her husband is Vondi Curtis, who has been in a few movies. He was in, if anyone remembers him, he was in Die Hard 2. He was the black man who was the henchman. He was also in Talk to Me as well. He played a supporting character in that. He was also in, can't think of a few other movies. He was in Don King's movie back in 1997 with Ving Rhames called Only in America, which was a pretty great movie in and of itself. But Harriet Tubman's, yeah, this movie, I certainly would not waste my time seeing it. Uh, you know, if it's indeed what, just from the clip that I saw, I don't think it's even worth it. It made $12 million. And then on top of that, and I go back to what was explained to me, what I saw, Dr. Boris Watkins showed a picture of the historian on the Harriet Tubman movie, and it's a white female. And this is the point of where when we don't control our audience, when we don't control our venues, our production companies, you're going to have people who are going to continuously, get rich off of us, that are going to continuously tell the stories not from our point of view, but push this false narrative of to make it slavery look like some type of damn sex party. And you actually have a black, I think it's a black homosexual man who actually has a Broadway play on slavery where they show the white slave owners in a romantic relationship with their black female slaves. And I think sadly, a lot of our black females in our community, our sisters, are being forced to accept stuff like this, where it's being pushed onto them that slavery was this romanticized event and that the white man really had no choice. He had to do this and do that. And I've seen movies, you don't like this shit. It is so disgusting. When I see movies, there was actually a film, and I think it flopped at the box office, where you had a German Nazi falling in love with what was called the Rhinestone Bastards. Those were the black Germans, or, other than the Jews. A lot of people don't know this, but you had gypsies, you had Catholics, you had black Germans that were also persecuted by the Nazis. Hold on a second. Let me put that article up. Go Google that, the Rhinestone Children or Rhinestone Bastards. And I can't thank you, the sister that starred in that movie. The movie is called The Hate You Give. That was a movie that came out in 2018. She was in that. That's not the name of the movie. Amanda Steinberg. She played in the Hunger Games. She played in Everything's Everything. The movie she did was called Where Hands Touch. That was the movie. Yeah, the movie flopped. $67,000. That's how much money the movie made. Yeah, fetishism of black women. That's the criticism it received. Romantici- romanticization of Nazis and fetishism of black women. That's exactly what it was. And they did the same thing with Harriet, from what I understand. So I don't have any interest in seeing it. So I won't give it a rating or anything. If you guys have seen it, you can let me know how it was. You can put something in the chat box. But this was the clip of this was the movie. And I saw the bootleg clip someone had of it. I'm not going to waste my time. I don't think it's worth wasting my time and money on watching it. So Dr. Boyce Watkins is actually going to be doing his review of the Harriet Tubman movie. He actually said he was about to walk out during one scene. So they portrayed the black man as the villain, and that's something that we're commonly seeing in movies. We even see it, and I have to say this, in Tyler Perry's movie, where you had the dark-skinned male versus the light-skinned male. The dark-skinned male is the villain in the movie, whereas the light-skinned man is the one who's the savior in Tyler Perry's movies. If you remember, one movie he did that was geared toward men was a movie called Daddy's Little Girls in 2007 that Idris Elba starred in, and Gabrielle Union. And in that movie, Idris Elba was actually portrayed as a hardworking father of three girls, whereas the female, the mother, was the villain in the story. And that movie, of course, did well at the box office, but a lot of people felt, I think there was a lot of criticism uh, against Tyler because he doesn't make those type of movies anymore. So he sticks with his base, which is black women, trying to find the right man, and how come we can't find a man? And then, he gets in drag playing Medea's character, the Medea character. So Daddy's Little Girls was produced on a budget of $10 million and made 31.6. So I don't know how much his advertisement was, but Tyler Perry made, obviously got money back on it, but you've never seen Tyler do any of those movies like that again. And this was in 2007, February 2007, when he did that. So everything now, if you notice, was after that was Medea's Big Happy Family, and Medea Goes to Jail, and then Medea's Halloween, Medea's Big Christmas, things of that nature, where women are portrayed, as victims in in a lot of those movies, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. His films, he's received a lot of criticism for it because his movies are always the same. It's always the same plot outline, but he's making a lot of money, and he's found his niche, and that's what he sticks to. But we need to find our own niche and create our own studios where we don't have to see films like this. We don't have to see films like where our heroes are portrayed in a negative, where our men are always portrayed in a negative. So, till then, guys, that's all I have for today. You guys are free to leave a comment. This is Gavin Richard Presents. If you'd like to see more uh, films and short videos like this, please support me at my Cash App as well as my Google Pay. I have those links in the description video. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good day.